Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Bhajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Mr. Paramahansa Sarvajikacharya Ashtotartata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtotartata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the Āsuraṁ devotees. All glories to the Āsuraṁ devotees. All glories to the Āsuraṁ devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Now everyone has a book, access to a book. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the 7th day of May, 2024, in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, text 15 on page 320. Okay. Okay. Namam duṣkṛtino mudha. Namam duṣkṛtino mudha. Papadyante naradama. Papadyante naradama. Māyayāpahṛta-jñānās. Māyayāpahṛta-jñānās. Āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ. Āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ. Namam duṣkṛtino mudha. Papadyante naradama. Māyayāpahṛta-jñānās. Āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ. Namam duṣkṛtino mudha. Papadyante naradama. Māyayāpahṛta-jñānās. Āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ. Namam duṣkṛtino mudha. Papadyante naradama. Māyayāpahṛta-jñānās. Āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ. You want to try it? Chant it on your own? Nelson? Namam duṣkṛtino mudha. Papadyante naradama. Māyayāpahṛta-jñānās. Āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ. You want to try it? Namam duṣkṛtino mudha. Papadyante naradama. Māyayāpahṛta-jñānās. Āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ. Ladies? Want to try? You don't have to if you don't want to. Go ahead, you can do it. Namam duṣkṛtino mudha. Papadyante naradama. Māyayāpahṛta-jñānās. Āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ. Not bad. Anyone online?
Namam duṣkṛtino mudha.
Namam duṣkṛtino mudha.
Papadyante naradama.
Papadyante naradama.
Māyayāpahṛta-jñānās.
Māyayāpahṛta-jñānās.
Āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ.
Āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ. Okay, so I'll read the word by words myself. You just read along, then go on. Na, not, mam, unto me, duṣkṛtina, miscreants, mudha, fools, papadyante, surrender, nara adamaha, lowest among mankind, mayaya, by the illusory energy, apahṛta, stolen, jnānā, whose knowledge, āsuraṁ, demonic, bhāvam, nature, āśritāḥ, accepting. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are the lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Now, just to let you know, we read, this is a long purport. We read about half of this purport yesterday, and I think we're on page 3323, number 3. Right in the middle, yeah. So we'll go there and then we'll review the whole purport. We're on, you see that 322 and the number 3 there? It's about 1/3 of the way down the page. The next class of duṣkṛtī, or miscreants, is called māyayāpahṛta-jñānās, or those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of the illusory material energy. They are mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, literati, scientists, etc., but the illusory energy misguides them, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. There are a great number of māyayāpahṛta-jñānās at the present moment, even amongst the scholars of the Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, in plain and simple language, it is stated that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is none equal to or greater than him. He is mentioned as the father of Brahma, the original father of all human beings. In fact, Sri Krishna is said to be not only the father of Brahma, but also the father of all species of life. He is the root of the impersonal Brahman and the Paramatma. The super soul in every entity is his plenary portion. He is the fountainhead of everything, and every one is advised to surrender unto him, and surrender unto his lotus feet. Despite all these clear statements, the māyayāpahṛta-jñānās deride the personality of the Supreme Lord and consider him merely another human being. They do not know that the blessed form of human life is designed after the eternal and transcendental feature of the Supreme Lord. All the unauthorized interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita by the class of māyayāpahṛta-jñānās outside the purview of the parampara system are so many stumbling blocks on the path of spiritual understanding. The deluded interpreters do not surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, nor do they teach others to follow this principle. Okay, so we're going to Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnanandana-shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I'm just going to recap some of this purport and some of the context of what's going on in the Bhagavad Gita at this point. Now, this verse and the previous verse go together. You know, Krishna's speaking one after another. Previous verse, very important. Daiviyesha gunamahi mama māyāpahṛta-jñānās mame bhayeva padyante maya metang taranti te. This divine energy of mine, and he's speaking about this material energy, which is divine because it's connected to Krishna. As a gunamahi means composed of the modes of nature. Goodness, passion, and ignorance, sattva guna, raja guna, and tama guna. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult, very difficult to overcome. Duṣkṛtī, very difficult. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. And then, so those who surrender, but the next verse describes those who don't surrender to Krishna. These four different categories of miscreants. The miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are the lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. And then the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains each one of those categories. So these two verses actually give us a very, let me see. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnanandana-shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. I'm sorry, I forgot if I had done that already, but no loss. So, why is it so important to understand these verses? Because in the material world, the first lesson of the Bhagavad Gita is that we're not the body, is that we're spirit souls. And that the spirit soul is categorically different or in contrast to the body, because the body comes into a being at a certain time and eventually goes out of being. Everything material is temporary. That's why it's called asat, right? What is that famous phrase? Asato ma sadgamaya, right? Take me from the temporary to the eternal. So if our whole understanding of ourselves and this world is wrapped up in the material world, we have no knowledge of spirit at all, then truly we're living in a atmosphere of ignorance, gross ignorance. Because what happens? Well, just look at what an ordinary life is like, a human life, which is unique because of the higher intelligence. And we grow up and we're in a certain culture, a certain family, a certain race, everything. We have a certain identity. Okay. And then we have the field of activity, which is this whole material world, our little local family, whatever it is. So what do we do in that circle? We try to, of course, we act in such a way that we try to maintain our body and soul together. We all have to have some work. And we try to find pleasure. We try to find pleasure in the contact with the sense objects. And we try to avoid pain. This is every species of life. Maximize the pleasure, minimize the pain. And there's certain configurations of matter, right? We find in the opposite sex. In human life, it's much broader. We have music, we have fine arts, we have things in different modes of nature that will please us. And if we experience it once, we may want to try to do it again and again and again. So in this way, we become conditioned to a certain environment and a certain series of things that we try to enjoy and things that we try to avoid so we don't feel pain. But the attempt to find a permanent situation is frustrated because of the passage of time and our inevitable getting older and older, and eventually we leave this body. The body is just a very, very complicated machine. In fact, I like to say that the human form of body, even all bodies, but let's just think of the human body, is so intricate and so incredibly put together with the brain and the nervous system and the blood and all. We don't know how it's working, but it's working. The human body itself is a proof of the existence of God, because only a supreme intelligence could engineer everything that we experience in our everyday life and we take for granted. So, but we have no idea of what that is in our ordinary course of life unless we come in touch with a higher source of knowledge, whether it's a realized soul or a book such as this, Bhagavad Gita as it is, where we can get this information about the underlying reality that's sustaining everything we see, but that we can't perceive. And so in the earlier part of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna taught different kinds of methods of finding that out. We had karma yoga, where everything you try to live a life of simplicity and you give as much as you can for sacrifice, right? And then there's jnana yoga, where you're trying to use your intelligence to perceive the spirit within the matter in that way. And then dhyana yoga, which we had in the 6th chapter. Ashtanga yoga, the 6 limbs, yama, niyama, asana, pratyahara, pranayama, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, right? And Krishna describes in detail how to sit, where to go, what to do. Like Arjuna says, "Oh, I can't do it," right? He rejects that. He has a classic phrase, because the whole idea is the mind. You have to try to control the mind, bring it away from all of the material things and draw it to the self and the super self within the mind. It's not so easy. So he says, "Oh, I can't do it. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati bhagavadgita tasyaham nigraham manye vāyariva duṣkṛtī." The mind is very restless. Who can deny it? Chan mana Krishna, and very obstinate. If it wants to do something, you can't stop thinking about it. Pramati balavad, it's powerful. Dridham, determined. I think that to try to control the mind is like to try to control a hurricane. You can't control it. It's just so powerful wind, you know. So Krishna says, yes, it's very difficult, but you can do it with practice. And then you know, so Arjuna says, okay, but what if I fail? That's okay. Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Bhrashta Bhajayati. You'll take birth in a pure family, you continue your process in the next life. And it go on and on like that. Arjuna is not very, you know, said, but what happened if I fail? So I go to the Himalayas, I sit in meditation, but I can't do it. I've already given up my Kshatriya life and all of that. Now I'm like a riven cloud. I'm in no sphere, so I'm nowhere. So obviously Arjuna is not very eager to practice this Ashtanga yoga. So Krishna, it's like at the end of the chapter, he says, don't worry. Yoginam abhisarvesham madgatenam tadatmana shuddhavam madhateyamam samayuktataмо maha. The greatest yogi, whose one is always thinking of me within his heart with great affection and love and faith. And that's, you know, so Arjuna says, oh, what a relief, because he's already doing that. He's a very intimate friend of Krishna, you know, Arjuna, over many, many births. So he says, okay, I'm already at that point. But then in the next verse, the beginning of this chapter, Krishna starts speaking about a method in which we can all take part, in which we can begin to see God in everything and see our relation with God. And so he says, just hear from me. Then I'll teach you how your mind can naturally be attracted to me. And he says something very interesting. Because he begins, in anything. If you're going to teach someone something, whether it's a child or a college, student, you have to begin from where they're at. That's why you have an aptitude test, right? And then what do you know already? And then you can get into this class. Right? So Krishna says, okay, let's begin where we're at. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, the material elements, which we're all familiar with. We live with them every day. We just don't maybe differentiate them like that. So solid matter and liquids and radiant energy and the air and moving, we're all familiar with those. And space that accommodates everything that's finer. These are finer and finer. And then there's the internal elements that we can't really perceive, but we know they're there. Mind, intelligence, discriminating power, and ego. Ego is the sense of self. That's also an immaterial element. Very, very subtle. So these 8 elements, he says, these are āpahṛta-prakriti. These are the lower prakriti. They're not conscious being. There's no consciousness there. But they're like the building blocks for everything we are, including our own body. So these 8 are my lower material entities. They're not trans. But para-prakriti, there's another one, which is the soul. Each of us, the jiva shakti. Aparemitastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yedam dayade jagat. And we are actually sustaining the universe. The universe is here so to accommodate all uncounted trillions of living entities, in lower species also, and higher species, demigods, in their life of trying to exploit the material energy. And ultimately, hopefully coming to the conclusion that it's a failure, we can't do that, and they take up Krishna consciousness. So that's what he says. Now, how can we begin our path or our journey to self-discovery? We have a book called Journey to Self-Discovery. And that's by seeing these very experiences that we have every day. Tasting water. Rasoham apsakontaya pabasmi shashisuriyo. He says, and he goes through all different things. I am the taste of water. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the strength of the strong and the fragrance of the earth. All of these different things. I am that. Why does he say he is that? Because these are his energies, including our senses by which we can perceive them. Krishna not only created the taste of water, he created the water, he created our tongue, and he also created that sensation that we have, which is another subtle creation. So the point is that in our very ordinary life, we can begin to see the presence of God. And here in this text 14, he is describing that the key step in self-realization and getting away from the temporary and going to the eternal, which Prabhupada said means going back to Godhead. We're all exiles from there. This is a very important point, that we, by nature, are Satchidananda. Satchidananda means eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. But just think of our life now. None of us are eternal, right? And we have some knowledge, but we're not full of all transcendental knowledge. And we have some happiness, intermittent, but it's not bliss, it's not ananda, you see, it's temporary. So that's our nature. How can we get back to it? And so here Krishna is giving in the text 14, it's a key verse. These 3 modes of nature, Daivi Yesha Gunamayi, are actually divine because they're connected to me. He's the divinity, right? Daivi Gunamayi, Mama Maya, it's my Maya, it's my energy, my nature, Duratya, but very, very difficult to cross beyond on our own. We may say, well, I want to get free from this temporary world, but how do we do it, you see? But then he tells you in the next line, Ma me vyepapadyante, maya me tangtarantide. By surrendering unto me, one easily crosses beyond it. So this is the essential, page 318. We're on page 318, Joy. Okay. Sorry, I should have done it. So by surrendering to Krishna. Now, how to do that, that's described elsewhere in the book and also our other books. There's a whole science of that, science of bhakti. But basically it means turning our attention to Krishna and learning what he wants us to do. That's what it means. If you surrender to someone, you try to figure out what they'll tell you what they want, and if you agree, then if you have a job and you have a boss, you know that, okay, Here's the outline of the job. Let me do the job very nicely, so I'll, keep the job and I'll get paid. Maybe I'll advance, I'll get hired. So you're surrendering to the boss. We're all surrendering all the time. Just like during the pandemic, I'm sure you remember that. Who can forget? So, I don't know about you, but I became much more conscious of breathing, right? Normally we don't think about it so much, until there's something to stop it, then, I can't breathe, right? So that is something we're surrendering to, to breathing. We have to do that, we have to drink water, we have to eat, we have to sleep. It means that these are imperatives that we have to do in order to live. So we're already surrendered. And someone, say, gets married, and you're living with someone, and you're trying to please them, they're trying to please you. There's a certain amount of surrender there. It means the basic definition is that you really want to know what the person wants from you, and then you try to fulfill that. Now, it depends on who that is. If that happens to be some exploitative person, or something, then that's a bad relationship, which you may not be able to get out of so easy. So surrender is not always good. It depends on who you're surrendering to. So the main thing is, if we surrender to God, who is all good, who really wants our benefit, He doesn't need anything from us. He's trying to help us to come back to Him. This was explained at the beginning of chapter 4. Why does Krishna come? So first he says, I spoke this knowledge to the sun god already. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham abhyam. This word abhyam is the most frequent word in the Bhagavad Gita. It means inexhaustible, eternal, ever there. We are abhyaya as souls, but not as body. So I spoke this millions of years ago. Arjuna says, how is that? We're contemporaries. He's kind of representing us. We grew up together, we're friends. How could you have spoken this millions of years ago? So Krishna says, I have had many births, and so have you. You've always appeared with me. But I can remember them all, and you can't. Because Krishna really doesn't change his body. It's always spiritual, see. So he describes like that. And then he says there's 2 verses where he describes, I think most people who grew up in Indian homes, they learned this verse, right? Yada yada hi dharmasya? Huh? Yeah? Glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam tadatmanam says. I didn't learn that as a child. You're very fortunate. So what does it mean? Whenever and wherever there is discrepancy in dharma, dharma is so important, real religion, and an upsurge of irreligion, yadaya dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam sajamyaham. I advent myself, I appear. And what do? Paritanaya sadhunam, vinashaya duṣkṛtī, dharma samsthapanartaya, sambhavami yuge yuge. Millennium after millennium, or era after era, I appear in order to protect the devotees. Paritanaya sadhunam. And vinashaya, to eradicate the miscreant, the demons who are tormenting the devotees. Just in the morning, we're reading about Nrsimhadev and Prahlad. Have you ever heard? Lord Nrsimhadev, the half man, half lion incarnation, very fierce. So he came to save his beloved devotee, Prahlad. And so Krishna comes also for that reason. But for us, the thing is, and to reestablish Dharma. Now, how does he do that? He's speaking Bhagavad Gita, by speaking Uddhava Gita. He doesn't, in the Bhagavad Purana, he speaks and he comes externally. He's also with us in our heart. So he's ready to give us good instruction. He's been trying to give us good instruction for a long time, but we don't want to hear him. So he comes outside as the Bhagavad Gita and as the Acharya, or the Acharyas, who are giving the same knowledge and who personify the knowledge. If someone is trying to sell you something, right? Just let's just think the Hatha yogis, phenomenon been going on. I remember when I wanted to practice Hatha yoga back in 1969, when I go back a long way. I've been doing this for 51 years. Hare Krishna, welcome. And but I was living on Long Island. There were no yoga studios at that time. So I looked on. We used to have this thing called the Yellow Pages. People who are under a different age don't know what that is. Now you just get online, but we didn't have any internet. So I looked up yoga, and I found there's a studio in Manhattan, which was I lived about 25 miles from there. So I take a bus, or I take a train and go in. So I started going in there, and there was it was great because this was from Indian. It was from India. I was interested in that. Ravi Shankar, and of course the Beatles were interested in My Sweet Lord. So I was getting influenced by that, and I was interested in that, and it was very effective. But if the person who's the teacher, now if he is very fat and not in good shape, he's not going to be able to. He has no credibility. He's teaching you something to become very limber, but he himself, or he or she herself is not. So the person who's teaching you some process for self-improvement, they have to personify that. So therefore, the contact with the realized soul is like invaluable. There's a very nice verse in the Bhagavatam. And this is the verse that appears twice in the Bhagavatam, so it's important. There's one that appears 5 times. I'll tell you that one sometime. It's really incredible. But it says, Tulyama labenapi na swargam na punarbhavam bhagavat sangi sangasya martyanam kamutashisha. So tulyama means equal to. So what it's saying is that even a labenapi, even a split second, even 1 second association. Now this is a very interesting phrase. Bhagavat sangi. Sangha, we know, right? Satsanga is association with spiritual beings. That's a satsanga. So a sangi is someone who is associating. So Bhagavat sangi sangasya is association with an associate of the Lord, someone who is already God realized. So if you can get that association, meaning here, and imbibe the knowledge from, that's more valuable than going to heaven, swargam. Napunarbhavam, not coming back, liberation, just liberation into Brahman, that moment's association can be more valuable. Why? Because even in that one moment, you can imbibe the inspiration to investigate this process and take up the process of bhakti headed by you. It's called planting the seed. There's many of you, I'm not sure exactly what background you come from, but do you all know Lord Chaitanya? Yes, Lord Chaitanya, okay. So you go to why would you come to the Hare Krishna temple? Of course. So the Lord Chaitanya's book, we have Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the beautiful section of it in the Madhya Lila, he's teaching Sanatana Goswami and he's teaching Rupa Goswami, and there's some nice summary of his teachings there. And that's what really is the foundation for this movement, those books coming down. So he's teaching Rupa Goswami, he's beginning, and he says, Brahmanda Brahmate Kon Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasare Bhai Bhakti Lata Bij. So he says, Brahmanda Brahmate, this is us, Brahmanda Brahmate Kon Bhagyavan Jeev. I mean, Brahmanda is the universe. And some of you know there's higher planets, there's lower planets, we're in the middle planet, the earth, So, Brahmanda Brahmite, wandering through the universe. Sometimes if we do very pious activity, we may go to heaven. If we do nasty activity, we may go down to lower planets. So we're wandering for who knows how many millions of years, millions of births. So, Brahmanda Brahmate Kon, the fortunate jiva, Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasare Pai, by the mercy of both the Guru and Krishna. By the mercy of the Guru, you get Krishna. By the mercy of Krishna, you get the Guru. And what do you get? Bhakti Lata Bij. Very, very nice metaphor here. He compares the growth or the development of bhakti, of love of God, to a transcendental creeper or vine growing in your heart that eventually fructifies. But the seed has to be planted. And that seed is planted by the realized Guru, the Acharya. So Krishna sends that person, Srila Prabhupada, if he hadn't, the history of his life is really inspiring. I highly recommend. There's a book, which is a multi-volume book called the Prabhupada Lilamrita, but there's also a condensation of that, which I think, I forget what it's called, which we can. But the amazing thing is, the whole life story. The first volume is called A Lifetime in Preparation. When he meets his, he grew up, of course, in a Vaishnava family in Bengal. But then he got married and he was working as in a pharmaceutical factory like that. But his father was a great devotee and raised him as such, and he was a Vaishnava. And so he met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his guru. He didn't want to go because his father was so pious. Anybody who was dressed as a sadhu, he would invite him into the house and feed him, like that. But there were some who just, Prabhupada said he saw, there was one fellow, he's more or less an ordinary guy living on the street. And then in the morning he would dress as a sadhu and go around and beg. And in the evening he would take it off and maybe smoke a cigarette, It was just a business. So but his father was he didn't want to take any chances. So anyone who looked like a sadhu would invite him in, So he said, no, I've seen all these sadhus. His other friend would say, no, he's very special, this Bhaktisiddhanta. No, I've seen him. So it was like a tug of war on the street. And finally he thought, oh, okay, I'll go up there. And he was very impressed. So from that time when he met his guru, of course he already had the seed of bhakti, but it was really nourished. And eventually, from the beginning actually, when they first met the spirit, said, oh, they knew English. They had been trained, You're very intelligent young men in English. Why didn't you preach Krishna consciousness all over the world? He probably said, he probably shared his impressions later. He said, I just met him. Now he's telling me this. So Prabhupada had an argument. No, we have to be independent first. In the middle of the independence, difficult, the campaign. Mahatma Gandhi, Prabhupada was a follower of Mahatma Gandhi at that time. So the spiritual master said, no, I can't wait. It's too urgent for that. Forget about independence. It doesn't matter. You have to, become trained. So Prabhupada was impressed, and the seed was planted. The seed was there, but it was highly nourished. So this difference, what we need to do is get that seed planted and nourish it. How does it nourish it? Chiefly by two processes: hearing and chanting. Hearing the Bhagavad Gita and repeating it, and especially hearing the holy name and repeating it, the kirtan. That waters the creeper of devotion, which if you do it right, eventually fructifies and creates this wonderful fruit of prema, which you can taste forever. The creeper goes up and up and up, and you get out of this material world. So that's a metaphorical description, but it's really very illuminating, because good fortune, where does the good fortune come from? Something that can give you the key of how you can regain your original transcendental nature, which, don't forget, is Satchidananda. Anything material, any success you want to find in this material world is temporary, whatever you find. But this is eternal. We're going to come back to our eternal life. And I'll give you a little taste of just a little bit of the description of the spiritual world. Some of you may know, some of you not know. But in the book called the Brahma Samhita, this Brahma Samhita means basically the song of Brahma. When he became realized, he wrote this, or uttered it, it was written down. Lord Chaitanya found one chapter of this book, which he brought back with him, and he had everyone copy it. And so it's part of the regular canon of the Gaudiya Vaishnava. So at the end of the book, there's a couple of long verses that describe a little bit of what's going on in the spiritual world, in the Goloka Vrindavan. So I'll give you a little taste of that wonderful Sanskrit, and I'll describe what it says. It says, Shriya Kanta Kanta Kapadama Purusha Kalpatanavo Dhruma Bhumis Chindamana Mahi Toya Mamatam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivangshi Priyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Padamapitadasvajamapicha Sayatra Chirabdi Srabdi Sababibjasta Sumahan Nimeshadhakyova Vajatinihiya Trapi Samaya Bhaje Shweta Dvipam Tamahamiha Goloka Mitiham Vidantaste Santa Chidibitadakara Katipaye. So what he's describing there is that in that transcendental world of Goloka Vrindavan, Goloka means the planet where there's a lot of cows, right? Transcendental cows, Surabhi cow. In that Goloka Vrindavan, the highest planet in the spiritual world, there's also spiritual planets. It says the Krishna is the supreme lover, and his lover is the goddess of fortune, Shriya Kanta Padama Purusha. Kalpatadavadruma, all the trees there are desire trees. Just imagine, there's a desire tree there. Can I please have 5 beautifully ripe mangoes? And the tree provides it. And then another person comes, I need to have a few Fuji apples. Can you please provide? And you get the apples. Whatever you need from that kalpa vriksha, that's what it means, a desire tree, you can get. It's also fully conscious. Everything is there. So every tree is a desire tree. All the land is made of Chintamani gems, The water is nectar. The talking is singing, and the walking is dancing, and you can hear Krishna's flute in the distance always playing very sweetly. You see, Priyasaki. And everything is glowing with Chidananda Jyoti, with the effulgence of spiritual bliss, which you can taste, you know. There are all these wonderful Surabhi cows, which give as much milk as you want. They're so joyful that they're always pouring milk on the ground, and so it's kind of muddy with milk. And here's the key phrase. There's no passage of time. There's only the eternal present. Nobody gets old, nobody gets feeble. Everyone is in a perfect position suitable to our unique relationship with Krishna. We can relate to him eternally. In every day is anew with new adventures of play. How would you like to have a job that all you did all day was play and you got paid? Well, there's something like that. Because that's what Leela is. And that's what Krishna is doing. He's God. Why would he work hard? You know, but the essence is the rasa, the relationship. And we see, like, when Kartik comes around, right, and we were able to meditate on that Damodar Leela, you know, Mother Yashoda's relationship with baby Krishna, and he hides all his majesty and power, you know, so he's just like a naughty boy, and she's trying to discipline him, you know, and it's all just an ocean of love, you know, varieties. And so why should we be interested in that? Why does that attract us? Because we are intrinsically Krishna conscious, and we have that love for him. And so when we hear these beautiful pastimes, we're naturally attracted. It attracts the mind. And we see, oh, this is a reflection, you know, the mother-child relationship, which Prabhupada said, this is the purest, most selfless relationship we have in this material world. Where a mother is a newborn baby, doesn't really know anything, just knows this big, you know, source of love and safety and nourishment called the mother, right? Which he doesn't even know what it's called. And so he has and the mother, as far as loving the child, she doesn't want anything back. She just wants the child to be happy and healthy and secure and safe, and right, like that. If the child is, you know, is fed nicely and he gives a little smile, there may not be many teeth there yet, you know, but the mother's day is made. So how is that? What is she getting? She's just taking pleasure in the pleasure of her beloved child. And that's the eternal pleasure with Krishna. There's this very nice phrase, which many devotees don't memorize, but I remember when I first read it, it was in a purport in the second canto. And it completely encapsulates the essence of bhakti, of pure bhakti. Bhajaniya padamapurusha sukha matra swasukatvam. So bhajaniya means worshipable. Padamapurusha means the supreme person. Krishna. He's the supreme worshipable person. Sukha matra, only the happiness of that supreme person. Swasukatvam is the source of my happiness. I find my soul happiness in giving happiness to Krishna, to God. So how can I do that? Well, you can begin by chanting Hare Krishna. Just chanting his name. He's very happy to see that. Aho batasya pachoto gariyan. There's a verse spoken by Kapila Dev's mother, the original Kapila Dev, Devahuti. And he's teaching her, you know. And so in the middle of that, he says, oh, how amazing it is. Aho batasya pachoto gariyan. Even someone who's born in a family of dog eaters, which are like the lowest class, you know. But if they're chanting your name, they're on the tip of their tongue is vibrating his name, Jivagi. They must have performed all kinds of sacrifices in the past life and went to the holy places and studied the Shastra and everything to be born and to be spontaneously attracted to chanting. So, what's the problem? Prabhupada says there's no cost, you know. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What did that cost me? You know. Hardly even burned up 1 calorie. But it's so auspicious. Just chanting one name. I'll give you a verse, okay? This is such a wonderful day. Usually I have maybe 4 or 5 people in the class. But of course they're out there. And welcome, you know. But this is Taco Tuesday. So somehow people come and okay, what else are we going to do? Sit in the class. And we'll have a beautiful arti in a few minutes. So this is a verse describing just the chanting, how potent it is to chant one holy name, just once. So here's the beauty of the Sanskrit. Listen to the rhythm, the chanda. Anghak sanghadadakilang sakadodihade pasakalalokasya tadanidivatammila jalading jayajit ganmangalang hare nama. You can't do that in English. So what that means, I wrote a poem because one of our great acharyas is named Haridas Thakur. And he was born in a Muslim family, but he became a Vaishnava, which caused some difficulty. There's a whole pastime around that. But he began chanting, and he would chant 300,000 names a day. Now, Srila Prabhupada, when he came to America, he was part of the Gaudiya Math, which was the Spiritual Masters organization. And in that organization, they had to chant 64 rounds a day. That was part of the vow that they took of japa, which is a lot. And so he tried to get his followers in the Lower East Side of Manhattan to do that. And they said, okay, we'll give it a go. They had their beads that they got from the local, in those days it was a 5 and dime, now it's a $1 store. There were no beads from India. So they strung them very safely, they're chanting big beads, Hare Krishna. So they came back to Prabhupada after one day. They said, Prabhupada, if you want us to do anything else, then there's no way we can chant 64 rounds a day. Because even if you chant 5 minutes a round, which is very fast, it takes 5 hours and 20 minutes. But they weren't chanting 5 minutes a round. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's about 12 minutes a round, so the whole day. So okay. 32, absolutely. So they went back, too many. So he came to Prabhupada. It'll take us all morning. We won't be able to do anything before lunch. He said, okay, minimum 16 rounds. So Prabhupada said, and that's to this day, to be initiated, you have to take 2 vows. One is to chant 16 rounds a day, and the other is to follow the 4 regulative principles. And that is, I'm not going to do a whole class on that, but no illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, even up to coffee and tea, and no gambling. And so that's not so easy either. But so that's why you can't just walk in and get initiated. It's like at least 6 months to see if you can really follow those things. And and the thing is, they go together. If you really get serious about chanting, Krishna will give you the spiritual strength to give up those things that you may have had. And after a little while, it's like, are you kidding? I would never even dream of doing that again. At first, you said, okay, I can. We have people, you can vouch for this, You may give up illicit sex, intoxication, and meat eating. Gambling, no. It's as strong as a toxicant as cocaine sometimes, is gambling. Guess where they have Gamblers Anonymous. So anyway, the point is that there's a certain prerequisite to do it. But the chanting is the key. By doing the chanting with concentration and faith, you get the spiritual strength to give up those things and positively to start doing all the things that we do, and living a life of a devotee. So it's very auspicious. So Srila Prabhupada, he was obviously the key, the founder who was able to inspire and induce faith and determination in his followers. And Prabhupada, he was with us for 12 years, essential 12 years, but he empowered others to follow, and it's all going on like that. So, Daiviyesha Gunamayi, if you surrender to Krishna, then you can cross beyond this material energy. And then the verses that we dealt with today was those who don't surrender. And they're basically, duṣkṛtī means you can be very qualified materially, you can be very intelligent. Like Oppenheimer, I didn't see the movie, but I know who he is, the guy who helped build the atomic bomb. So it takes a lot of knowledge and organization and everything. What's the result? He killed a lot of people very quickly. Great, But how about, teaching that where people can become eternal and get free from disease and old age and death. So that's duṣkṛtī. And then the mudhas, the fools, foolish people, who are just, they're not interested, they're completely absorbed in lower things, They won't surrender. And then the lowest among mankind, there's some overlap here. You can be foolish and also be lowest among mankind. And then we read today about māyayāpahṛta-jñānās, those who maybe have college degrees and so many things, but it's all on the material side. And the real knowledge of the soul and the God and the relationship has been stolen by Maya, māyayāpahṛta-jñānās. And then the demonic, which I don't know if we dealt with that. We didn't read that yet. And I think we'll have to do that. That's the number 4. Yes. All right, why don't we finish that? We'll finish the purport. 4. The last class of duṣkṛtīs is called āsuraṁ bhāvam āśritāḥ, or those of the demoniac principles. This class is openly atheistic. It's not like they're agnostic. I don't know if there's a God or not. I was agnostic, you know. But they know for sure there's no God. And they want to save people from this delusion, you know, the opiate of the people, that type of thing. This is the āsuris. This class is openly atheistic. Some of them argue that the Supreme Lord can never descend to this material world, but they are unable to give any tangible reason why not. There are others who make him subordinate to the impersonal feature, although the opposite is declared in the Bhagavad Gita. Envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the atheist will present a number of illicit incarnations manufactured in the factory of his brain. Such persons, whose very principle of life is to decry the personality of Godhead, cannot surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Sri Yamunacharya Alabandharu of South India said, "O my Lord, you are unknowable to the persons involved with atheistic principles, despite your uncommon qualities, features, and activities, despite your personalities being confirmed by all the revealed scriptures in the quality of goodness, and despite your being acknowledged by the famous authorities renowned for their depth of knowledge in the transcendental science and situated in the godly qualities. Therefore, 1. Grossly foolish persons. 2. The lowest of mankind. 3. The deluded speculators. And 4. The professed atheists, as above mentioned, never surrender unto the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, in spite of all scriptural and authoritative advice." So, that's the key purport. And then the next verse, Krishna describes 4 pious classes of pious people who do approach God, and many of them surrender. Some stay in kind of a what do we say? You know, the approaching God as a order to supplier. You know, this is please, you give me this, give me that, cure my disease, whatever like that. It's pious, it's good because you're approaching God, but that's not the ultimate relationship we want. We want to know what Krishna wants and supply Him, you see. Oh, patam pushpam palam toyam, let me get the nicest flowers. Let me cook something nice for Krishna so he'll be pleased, you see. Krishna wants his name glorified. Okay, let me help the Sankirtan movement. You know, I had the great fortune all these 51 years, basically, of working on these books and helping to publish them. And so that's been very fulfilling. Because I know people who read this. Like I mentioned, this Science to Self-Realization book. So we had other books like that. They're basically compilations of Prabhupada's lectures that we took from Back to Godhead, and we, you know, put them in there. And the one that's most famous is Science to Self-Realization, which is really a staple, you know. But then you know, we put others together, and that was one of the ones I did. And that one is still, that was like over 30 years ago when we put that out. And it's still going strong. They distribute it now. And you know why? Because it's basically equivalent. The title of a book it's intriguing for people. The journey of self-discovery. You know, people want to go on a journey. Just like Radhanath Swami, he named his book, his little biography, autobiography, The Journey Home. People, oh, home. Yeah, what is the home? Oh, home to the lotus feet of Krishna. You know. So anyway, that's my little story. So I started writing a few poems over the years, and so I'll share with one or two with you, and then we'll adjourn for the kirtan. So here's actually that verse, Anghak Sang Hatadakilang Sakadadiyag Deva Sakalalosi. I never really gave you the translation. So it's I took that verse and its translation and Haridas Thakur's explanation of it, which is in the CC, and I put it into a poem. So listen up. When the moon, now this, you have to go back 500 years. There's no electric lights. When the sun goes down and there's no moon, which there is once every month, right? It gets very dark. And people may become scared, you know, you're out in the country. When the moon is invisible, withered to nil, and the sun is long gone from the sky, then an ocean of darkness envelops this world, and the timorous fear they might die. But that thick ball of gloom is at once swept away when the first signs of sunrise appear. And the dawning of day gives assurance to all that in truth there is nothing to fear. In a similar way, when illusion holds sway, and the soul has forgotten his Lord, then the darkness of ignorance covers his heart. Sin and suffering are his reward. But as soon as he says Krishna's name even once in a manner that doesn't offend, then his ignorance flees like the darkness at dawn, and his sin and his suffering end. So there's nothing to fear, for the sun of the name has appeared with his powers divine. In your heart may that sun, benedictive for all, become fixed and eternally shine. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing the beautiful deities in 5 minutes or less. Hare Krishna. And by the way, these classes, they're all on our YouTube channel. I've been giving this class since about 1989, so there's hundreds of classes there. And of course, many others. And please consult that and take advantage. Okay. And we'll have another class tomorrow, if you're interested. 7:15.